At any rate, joining us now, the spokesperson for Generation Opportunity, Corie Whalen. Corie, we welcome you back to America's Forum.
Thank you for having me.
Corie, the biggest issue among young voters seems to be trust in government. What are some ways government officials can reassure voters, especially young voters, that their concerns will be addressed?
I think what you're seeing among young people is the fact that our government has gotten so big, it's no longer able to meet its basic functions. And you see this more and more. I think young people are recognizing that they are better off engaging in social entrepreneurship rather than, traditionally understood public service. And I think that what politicians are going to have to do is really to end this war on youth that they've been perpetuating with bankruptcies and all of the entitlement programs that are frankly going to be on my generation's back. And young people feel that there's a bipartisan assault on our future.
Well, Corie, in terms of young people, and especially those who may still be students, the fact that the federal government has taken over basically every student loan program, the fact that there is, for lack of a better term, a tuition bubble with higher and higher tuitions, are there any issues that federal legislators, the folks in the Congress, could take on that would speak directly to Generation Opportunity type voters?
Yes, I think that's true. And I'm glad you brought up student loans. One of the problems is, and happens a lot in politics, is that the policies that actually help people are a little bit tougher to understand. So for example, it may seem good at face value to say, hey, let's give, student loans to everybody. Let's have the government indefinitely subsidize them. That will create access. Sounds great, but you brought up the student loan bubble. What really needs to happen is the government needs to be honest about the job market, and they can't simply subsidize student loans indefinitely and expect price increases to not occur. So we would like to see some reforms in those areas that actually, I don't think you're going to get the government out of the student loan business entirely, but I'd like to see more privatization there and a little more regard for the job market, because right now the incentives are such that private colleges keep raising costs. And so it's tough. It's a tough issue to talk about, but I agree we need reform in that area. We also need benefits, and Obamacare is adding to this, so we would call for a repeal of Obamacare as well.
Well, let's talk more about Obamacare. A new poll by the Washington Post and ABC News found that health care is getting worse in the minds of Americans. And you mentioned millennials. So many young people traditionally have shied away from health insurance. Try as the administration might to entice millennials into signing up for coverage, that's just not happening.
It's not. And the reason is because Obamacare actually isn't health insurance. Young person's risk. When you look nationwide, young people are facing increases of up to 200% in premiums without getting any benefits from it because of the way Obamacare is designed. So it's fundamentally part of this ongoing war on youth, and young people aren't buying it because it's not a good deal for us.
You and I talked a little earlier about education in general. It's been very interesting to see different assessments of the federal Department of Education. By one measurement, the United States Department of Education has a bloated budget, 94% of its employees deemed non-essential. Now, in the past, the challenge has been that when people, at least during my days in Congress, when we would talk about Department of Education, people would just hear the word education. How is it possible, especially reaching your generation, to say, well, we're talking about a bloated federal bureaucracy, we're not talking about the action of educating millennials or the children they one day will have?
Right. And I think that what you're talking about is important. And I think one of the good side effects of this lack of faith in government that you're seeing for my generation is increasingly a recognition that a federal department does not equal the goal in mind. And so I think, I touched a little bit on how millennials want to serve others through social entrepreneurship, whether that's using technology to help people's lives or even getting involved in jobs like teaching, on a more local level. These are important things. And I think with the lack of faith in government, we can start shifting that conversation to that. You don't necessarily oppose a thing because you oppose the government doing it. And that's the discussion we're trying to facilitate at Generation Opportunity.
Corie Whalen, we appreciate your thoughts as young people seem to be shying away from politics. We'll see if we can get them back involved in the mix. Thanks so much. So let me put it to you. Are you a young voter? Are you going to participate in the midterms? We'd love to hear from you. Tweet us your comments at America's Forum.